hotel program is sheltering. I'm just going to give an update on the numbers for Pinellas County. Currently, we have 1,927 households in the PSA program for Hurricanes Helene and Milton. That amounts to 4,036 individuals in the hotels. Of those, 871 are homeowners, 1,053 are renters, 97 of them are designated for a mobile home unit in the direct housing, the FEMA direct housing program. So that's a bit of a longer term housing program than GSA. 96 are designated for direct lease, which is another part of the direct housing program, but as opposed to a mobile home, that's where people provide you with a temporary furnished apartment. And our next eligibility deadline or checkout date will be January 29th. And at that time, 563 of the current PSA users in Pinellas County will be checking out the program. Pending questions at the end of that. Any questions in the room?
I do. Okay, so you've got 97 are designated for a mobile home unit in the FEMA direct housing program. Does that mean they're going to be moving next week into a mobile home? I mean, can you explain what that is?
Yes.
Versus designated for direct lease? So what should we expect as far as people being, you know, sent out of a hotel, not into housing?
So to answer the first part of the question, we do an eligibility sort of review every 14 days with the TSA program. The initial period of assistance was 60 days. The following period of assistance was 30 days, and each additional period of assistance is 14 days. So those that are eligible for the direct housing program will stay in the program until their direct housing solution is available. So it won't be that everybody who is eligible for direct housing will immediately move on the 28th or the 29th. They'll stay in the hotel program until their housing solution is ready. And that could be a mobile home that's going onto their private property, like a driveway. It could be a commercial park. So those take time to secure and then get permits, get utilities, et cetera, set up. So those folks won't be sent out of the hotel program until the next step in their transition to ready.
Then, so you said there's an eligibility review every 14 days right now with
Correct.
TSA. So how does a family or individual maintain eligibility?
Good question. So there's ineligible criteria, such as ineligible criteria might be something like if you never claim to have any damage to your home, or if you have a FEMA inspection and the FEMA inspector noted no damage. So things like that will make you ineligible, or if you had no contact with an inspector, or if you received a duplication of benefits, like through an insurance policy, if you had something like ALE, assisted living expenses, then you would be considered having a duplication of benefits. So it's ineligibilities that would come up that might get you removed from the program. And again, it's generally because there's another housing solution or, it was just, being that your home is safe to go back to at that time. Aaron?
Of the 4,036 individuals, do you know how many are children?
Not off the top of my head, and yeah, I'm not sure how easily we could get that information, but I can take that question back.
We have people online, and I think with Amy online, she should really be the one speaking, but I wanna, they're asking, are they allowed to speak if they are? I'd like that clarity, and I thought that was the case.
Yes.
Okay, so then,
Megan's gonna need to help to
right,
identify that. It's hard for me to see up here. So
Here, let me
you,
move the chat over.
if you could let me know, Megan. So
Yes. Anybody online who wants to ask a question, please raise your hand. And
thank you.
So it looks like Amy has a question, so go ahead, Amy.
No, I don't have a question. I was just trying to figure out what the roles were because I was getting some conflicting information.
Is that clarified now?
I'm good. Thanks, Kevin.
Okay, so you know, I asked a question about, so we've got 4,036 people in hotels. Of those, 871 are homeowners, 1,053 are renters. And we are now in a period of reviewing eligibility every 14 days, every 2 weeks. And if someone, aside from people who have duplicate benefits, so that's just kind of a documentation thing. So now we've got these 4,000 people and you're wanting to exit them from hotels into stable housing, either back into their home or back into a trailer on their property or help those homeowners. When do you anticipate having housing for the renters? Because I can't envision you discharging very many people every 2 weeks into rentals that they can afford or that are even available in Pinellas.
Yeah, it's a challenge. We provide something called rental assistance, which is, based on, what fair market value, and the size of the household. And many of these people have already received initial rental assistance. There's something called continued rental assistance, which they can apply for through FEMA. That requires them to locate a new place to rent. And once they do that, FEMA looks at their the pre-disaster expenses, like their utilities and income, and what they are required to spend now, and work on helping them with the difference. So if your expenses went up or your income went down, and that could be utilities, even things like that, we try to bridge that gap for them.
Okay. And it could be a loss of a hospitality job, all that kind of thing.
It could, yeah, as far as when you look at the pre-disaster and post-disaster, it wouldn't matter what their job was, but all of those things are factored into the application, right?
So is there just assurance that there's like a FEMA case management or screening person that will not discharge somebody from a hotel, a FEMA supported hotel, into the street?
Well, there's, like I was saying, there's an eligibility period every 14 days. The state and FEMA get together and agree on if there is any ineligibility criteria going to be added to the next eligibility review. So, for example, somebody who received rental assistance, that could be an ineligibility because that can also be seen as a duplication of benefits. We provided 2 months rental assistance. The idea is you take that 2 months rental assistance and use it for its housing yourself, whether it's for temporary because you're going back to your damaged dwelling or, a permanent new rental. so far, the state of FEMA have not made that an ineligible criteria, but I can't tell you for sure that they will never turn that toggle on, because, that's something they may choose to do for one of the future, periods of assistance.
And the rental assistance is based on our market rate here, because I don't want people to be given rental assistance that is $800 a month, it doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, it's based on the county, and it's based on, the amount of people in your household. I have definitely heard applicants say, I want to rent something, but I'm being told I need first class security. That it's a challenge.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna sit here and tell you it's not a challenge, it is. Yeah, what we provide is 2 months of when HUD deems for Pinellas County, with a household of X, you get this.
We do have a few questions online. Dekesia, you had your hand up first.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dequisia Jones. I'm the supervisor for 211 Homeless Helpline as well as the AFAP program. Just had a question regarding those individuals who are no longer eligible for the TSA program. Is there any advice or guidance we could share with them when they do reach out to 211?
I guess it would depend why they lost their eligibility. At this point, the criteria we're using for removing people from the program generally has to do with either their home being safe to occupy, or them having another housing solution, like being put into the FEMA direct housing program, or withdrawing from the program. So we haven't sort of turned anybody else away or turned people away for other reasons yet. We also have a division of FEMA called the Voluntary Agency Liaisons that work with longer term ROADs. So one recommendation might be to call the helpline for FEMA and request assistance from a voluntary agency liaison if they have exhausted their the funds that they're eligible for or services they're eligible for through FEMA's individuals and households program. And that's where our valves would take over and look for other programs. So I'm sure it's a lot like Home Florida or 211, but it is another resource that they can utilize.
Okay, thank you.
Ashley.
How long after they're notified that they're not eligible do they have to find other accommodation?
The way the program works, so we do the periods of assistance are every 14 days. They will get no less than 7 nights notice that their eligibility is going to end.
Oscar has a question online.
Yeah, just in case it's helpful for planning purposes. Yesterday we hosted a rental fair in conjunction with Bay Area Apartment Association. The fair started at 3 p.m. We had more than 80 people lined up at 1 p.m. and more than 300 people came through. There were 50 providers there with units available to help place people. They were not all in Pinellas County because, it's really a regional answer at this point. I could certainly see if we can follow up and find out more about how many people were actually placed, but I just think it's a helpful data point to understand how many people are looking for a place to live based on those numbers from yesterday or Wednesday. So we may look to host a second one since there was so much interest.
Thank you.
Great. Any other questions in the room? Or online? Karen?
Okay, so I'm going to love the whole thing, they just can't afford to rebuild, you know, but not, because something on, that help them, like, they use that rent deposit for relocating. Quickly, or is there any help on disposing of their property, like, whatever?
So, you talked about the rental assistance, that.
I'm so rental assistance to move, like, really, hopefully you will go back ever to their home and then probably to like selling their property, and then is there anyone or any agency we can refer to help them through that process?
So for rental assistance, we don't put a rule on what applicants can do additional rental assistance on it. So and when they go to, if they go to seek continued rental assistance, we are gonna ask them, what did you do with the, or how did you spend the initial 2 months rental assistance that you received? And they're gonna wanna see that went towards housing. Other than that, they could put that, if they have their own housing solution and they receive rental assistance, it's not money that is gonna ask for back, it's money they can use towards their recovery in other ways.
But it could be, I guess my question is, if they know they can never return to that house.
Yeah.
And they get that, they can still get that assistance on a temporary basis while they figure
Yeah,
out what to do.
so if your home is destroyed or uninhabitable, you're eligible for the, you know, that the, whether you're repairing your home or your home is destroyed, that would change your eligibility for the PSA program or rental assistance. It might be more likely to make you eligible for the direct housing program, because that's based on, if you're an owner, it's based on damage per square foot. So if you hit a certain threshold and direct housing is designated in that county like it is here, then you would be eligible for
So I think the last review period was last week, like last Wednesday, is that right?
Yeah.
So it's gonna be every other Wednesday?
It's the 21st, I believe. But that's good.
Yeah. So it was this Wednesday? I mean, I thought it was last Wednesday, was it?
Yeah, so it's, it was. Yeah. It's good. Yeah, 21st, so the next one will be. Yeah. That'll be the review period. That's for the 563. The 563 will come out, as of the 29th. The day of the 29th, that's the period of assistance as the one of the patient. They'll get that night and then back out. We know the 563. I don't think I have that.
So we're assured that these 563 that are going to be checking out of the program on January 29th have a safe place to go.
I can tell you what the ineligible, what could have made them ineligible.
Well, are these all
So
ineligible?
they're all in our.
All of these are ineligible, not that they've gotten the voucher and they know where they're gonna go.
The 563.
Yeah,
No, it's a mix. Some of them have received rental assistance, some of them had no home damage to begin with.
okay, got it. But if they've got rental assistance, someone has been assured that they are going into a livable situation. Safe housing.
For example, when we provide a rental assistance, we also provide rental resources, and the voluntary agencies provide all those resources for them to move forward with their new permanent housing plan.
But a resource can be like a list of, here's some apartments in the area, go find it.
that part of also, the voluntary agency, Hope Florida, they have a contact just trying to make sure that they have, if they have any resources, like hotels, not the hotels, the apartments, we have a list of the USDA that comes on the 15th of every month, and we provide them with, availability of those apartments that are available for them, base it on their household.
Can we look at a list of what that looks like? Because, I mean, it's hard to believe that there's enough apartments on that list.
Well, I think the goal of this group here is of the 563 coming out, we're going to know how many might still need assistance from the people sitting around this table that do not have stable housing, and how can we work with FEMA to bridge that gap. I think that seems to be the missing piece here. We're trying to understand that 563, how many of them are really don't have a place to go and might qualify for.
We could give you we could start by giving you what made 563 people ineligible. This many of them were moved from the program. This many of them had an inspection that said the home was safe to occupy. This many, that's not difficult for us. Okay, great.
In addition to the number of children in the households that you're listing, I would be interested in veteran status as well, just because I have specific programs that could benefit that population.
Okay. We'll request that.
Could you request, which ones have minor?
Yeah, we can request that.
Sorry, the 563 with households or
That is housing.
Yeah.
I participated during the resource fair, housing resource fair that just happened recently. And we had about 57 applicants actually meet up with FEMA and along with SBA, Small Business Administration. But the key component of what happened to that with us there is that we had members of our team with direct housing that are actually working together with property managers, properties out there to locate vacancies that have been impacted by the hurricane, where we can come in and kind of, speak to them to see how many units are available, what can we do to go ahead and fix it up, so we can place people, applicants into these homes or properties. I know that there's a couple that were there, and that resource fair actually helped our team to be able to make that initial contact with those property owners to see how we can start the process in that. And I know that maybe you might be able to elaborate a little bit on that, but just wanted to throw that out there too.
How do we find out what is the list of resources that are being given? That's all through Hope Florida.
Well, Hope Florida and FEMA are separate. Hope Florida is the state. So we're providing a list of resources such as the USDA list. We can provide a list of what we're providing.
Can you clarify what the USDA list, I mean, what is that?
USDA puts out every month a listing for every state lower income apartments or units. So anybody can look on that list.
They do it by county or
They
something?
do by county. You go in by state and then you go in by county. It'll tell you what's available in that county. Then it'll tell you everything from size of the unit to the contact, contact manager, whether it's a senior facility or an all-needs facility, the rent.
That's US Department of Agriculture?
Correct.
Okay. All right, and lower income apartments, what is that, like
I
8% of
you
your
guys,
list? You don't know? Okay,
I think the surprise is actually rural program, it is rural areas. I don't know if you'll get that here in the urban Canada.
It may be, but that's why these folks are going.
Yeah.
It's a rural program for Arkansas and those type places, but there may be some.
Oh, I see them in every all.
Okay. It's a new resource for us.
Second, guys are busy all the time, have to hear having stories every day.
It's helpful, verifying information.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get on the phone and try and get the info that you guys want before it's.
Any other questions from group or online? All right, send it down.
I have a motion for, agenda. A little move, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Who is it?
Judith.
All in favor, say aye if you're a voting member.
Aye.
Any opposed? Right, motion passes.
Okay, next we have the 2025 joint meeting dates. This is the approval of those dates. So they're listed in the agenda. Friday, April 18th. Friday, June 20th, Friday, August 15th, and Friday, August 17th. That is 1:30 to 3:30. 3 of those 4 meetings will be virtual. 1 meeting will be held here at the Largo EOC. I will say that I do have since I often run this, I do have a conflict with the June 20th meeting. I don't have April here today to back me up, but hopefully April will be able to stand in my presence for that meeting. Otherwise, I stand for a motion for approval of the meeting schedule. I don't think so. April? I don't know if she had a family emergency. I need a motion, yes.
So moved.
All right, motion, I get a second. Ashley, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Okay, moving forward with the HMIS policies and procedures update. Bonnie?
Hi, good afternoon and happy Friday. Thank you all so much for giving me some space to talk about our HMIS policy and procedure updates for 2025. This year, we kept it just to our HMIS security plan and our HMIS privacy plan. Our security plan, of course, will tackle things like encryption, security on passwords, different things like that. Whereas our privacy plan will tackle things more as like PPI or PHI, protecting your workspace. So kind of dabbing back and forth between the two. So the updates this year, the generalized summary is that we did try to add a lot of clarity in regards to positions and who is kind of in charge of what. So instead of our security officer being from our quality and improvement group, it's actually coming out of HMIS, our data analyst. Tony Salgado is our security officer, who some of you may know. And then our privacy officer is our training and data compliance specialist, Heather Nix. So some other updates, again, to just terminology. WellSky branding was updated from Service Point to Community Services. They had their old organization name of Medware in our previous security and privacy plan, so that has been updated as well. And now I will happily open it up for any feedback from our funders and providers.
Any questions? About online?
Okay. Right, yeah, everybody. How to drive on what number, what report the benchmark is are calculated from.
Oh, yeah.
So that way, everyone is calculating the same way. There's differences in definitions.
So great question, Ariel. Is that our CoC benchmarks or? Yeah, great question. Yeah, HMIS is happy to work on that. I know our CoC benchmarks are posted online under the HMIS webpage on the HLA website. But I agree that a guide needs to be created, or at least a step-by-step on how to review that data and compare it to your own. So absolutely.
Well, what I'm thinking about is like, tell me, is question number 18 on the HR? Is really.
So more so
And
like
this
the
is what they
location.
put. It's like some of the benchmarks say like successful out exit. Is that only the permanent housing? Is that the institutional permanent? And so I'm not sure that we're all comparing the same way. So I think should we just define like, this is the HMIS report, you pull it from, and it's question number such and such, and it includes this and that, or divide this by that. And then we're all doing it the same.
Thank you, Ariel. That was a great suggestion.
We have a question online. Amy?
Thank you. I think it's tangentially related to HMIS policies and procedures, but related, and wanted to understand a little bit about, I'm going to call it a good problem to have that right now in cold night shelter season, we are identifying people who may be typically hidden from our system, and that's usually our families with small children. And so in digging into some of the families that I've been made aware of and trying to look at, are we doing, our family by name list meetings and our shelter prioritization list meetings, and looking at the information that is shared for coordination among providers. I've noticed that some of the data that would be important to coordinate that care is not provided in the spreadsheet. And in asking follow-up questions about that, was told that we've been told as a funder we can't receive that data because it's a HIPAA violation, which was not true, and is not how I understand HIPAA at all. And so I just want to get some clarification around that, because as a system, the entire job of the system is to coordinate care unless somebody has opted out of sharing that information, and wanted to make sure that is not a change in the policies and procedures that you're approving here today.
Thank you so much for your question, Amy. So in regards to case conferencing and care coordination, during those meetings, we definitely stress that we do not want to share PPI information. So because those meetings are recorded, so that information, not so much a HIPAA violation. So I think the wrong language was used, Amy. I apologize about that. But that's going to be PPI and PHI. So things like first name, last names, definitely social security numbers, even date of birth can be in that category. According to our privacy plan, HMIS IDs are considered PPI. However, typically in those case conferencing meetings, you do have a majority of the attendees who have HMIS credentials or licensing. So definitely a discussion we'll need to have as far as the case conferencing using HMIS IDs, but no, it is not a HIPAA violation.
And I'm not talking about the case conferencing meetings, but in the past, there were spreadsheets that were password protected. And I'm not looking for date of birth or name even, but the type of information that's helpful in order to coordinate care is things like number of children, ages of children, where are they currently staying, things of that nature. And in the past, that has been provided so that funders even can coordinate with the providers we are funding to ensure that people can get enrolled in the programs that we're funding. And to be told that that's a HIPAA violation is concerning to me. And so I I'm just trying to figure out what has changed recently that would not allow release of information that has nothing to do with social security number or things of that nature, but the information we need to know which program a client might be appropriate for.
So Amy, that information that was shared was a mistake. We're taking some corrective action to help understand the distinction of what is a HIPAA violation. That's not the policy that we want to portray. That was absolutely a mistake. What I also want to help understand is how and when we can share that information in a better way to also help the continuum of care so that it's accessible, but also protected. And I think that does relate to this question very directly. You know, is it best in a spreadsheet that's password protected, that's requested ad hoc, or is it somewhere that's accessible in HMIS? So I think it's 100% appropriate for this discussion, but the information that you were told, no, that was incorrect. We're taking corrective action. Great question.
And I think, I mean, I think then some of us still need to see those sheets regularly so that we can, because we have programs that have been funded that have not been used to the full capacity of those programs. But without that information, we can't hold those providers accountable to ensure they're taking clients that are eligible for the program because they aren't getting the information either. So that's something that I'd like if by next week we could, figure out what the path forward is on that so that we can make sure that the services we're funding can actually work the way we intended them to work.
It's like Cynthia online has a
Yeah, Cindy wanted
response.
to.
Hello, everyone. I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm not sure if I'm able to discuss at this meeting, but I do note that concern came up during the meeting. I think it was earlier this week. And we are looking into it internally, Amy, as well as further discussion. I know that this isn't necessarily a HMIS issue. It's more of a coordinated entry. And I think Suzanne is on the call right now, maybe can explain further. But I can tell you that Amani and I have reviewed like who attends those meetings. And I think that an easy fix would be if everyone received a license so that they could openly share information during the meeting and view the information in HMIS itself. That might be helpful as well. It's not a HIPAA violation, as Aaron stated. It's more along the lines of PII, if anything. But I can tell you that we are looking into that further internally, if that helps.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure we weren't passing any policies that would hinder the coordination of care, which is the entire role of a continuum of care, right? And so that was my interest in bringing it up here.
Absolutely. No, I agree. And no, it's not an HMIS policy. It would be more along the lines of maybe a coordinated entry policy, if anything. But we are discussing it further.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Any other questions?
What is a release of information so long?
So we do have an HMIS informed consent and release of information form that is accessible on our help desk. It's also provided to any new provider in what we call our welcome packet, and available upon request as well if you have trouble accessing the form online. We did update in our privacy policy for street outreach. That is basically our one project type that is able to collect a verbal consent from clients, because of course they're doing that outreach. Great question.
I think we're merging two different issues. The issue of the coordinated entry meeting where there's staff at the table, and then the issue that Amy is referencing where she's looking for data, mass data. But non-specific information that can help funders, hold providers accountable.
Can you set a date? Can the HLA set a date for when that access to that information is going to be made available to funders and providers?
Yeah, I think it can be now. for lack of a better term.
Yeah, absolutely. If anyone needs information, please, we usually encourage individuals to submit, a help desk request. Please, don't hesitate to email myself, or Cindy if you have any specific questions. We'll be so happy to support you.
Okay, so, we used to have this sheet that kind of just said like how many individuals were referred to rapid rehousing or permanent supportive housing, how many were waiting for referral like the system, and then for saying for families. I'm just thinking too, like, we have the dashboard, I don't know, like that level, and then it could have, something about the other children or something like that too, as a, I guess that might be a subcategory under family, I'm not sure, but just thinking about if it's maybe just on that dashboard, that way everyone can see whenever. And I don't know if it's updated monthly or quarterly, but some way that we can see like how big is big, how many people are waiting to get our programs. Is that kind of what you're looking for, Amy, or even more details on that?
I don't know that she heard you speak so loudly there.
Amy, that question was towards you. I think, you're referencing the past, that there was a routine data that was sent out, not like someone requesting it individually, but it's.
I mean, so in the past, shelter prioritization list meetings for families was held regularly. And so that data was sent out weekly, as well as the family by name meeting, right? And so I'm not looking for, some kind of data to check that yarn duplicate. That's not what I'm looking for. It is simply, we have providers that have said to us, there's not enough families and that's why we're not spending your money, but yet we have 67 families on the list. But the reason they're unable to coordinate the care is because the things that are supposed to be happening at the system level are not happening, like the sharing of that data on a regular basis and or those care conference meetings. And so I'm just requesting that we get back to those procedures where that care is coordinated on a regular basis, because the funder's money doesn't going unused. We've had these problems in the past where, we fought very hard for additional rapid rehousing dollars. And then when they weren't spent, they got pulled back. And so it's the same kind of problem that I'm trying to ensure more money doesn't get pulled back because it's not being utilized.
That clarification.
So it sounds like you're looking for, maybe a twice monthly report, just data on number of people waiting, families waiting. I mean, I remember distinctly, it was like 140 families on a wait list forever. And, we used to get that regularly. So it was something that really stuck.
It's not just the numbers, Kathleen. And Helen would need to speak more specifically to this because she's more connected to the work than I am, but it's the family by name list, right? That is how we coordinate care as a CoC. And so on that by name list, we know how many children they have, how old are they, because if they're in a Pinellas County school, then they're eligible for Family Works. But when we don't know if the child is under 5 or 15, we don't know what programs they're eligible for. And I think in the past, those meetings were happening on a weekly or bi-weekly or I remember that data going out every single week, but I could be misspeaking and somebody closer to the system could speak to that.
The data went out every week, the meetings were every other week.
Yeah, that is true. And so what we're looking for specifically, so the shelter prioritization list meeting now, all we get is an HMIS number. We don't know the information. So we used to get that full spreadsheet that told us where the family was on the list, children, what school they were in. Family Works is based off of children being in school. I don't know when I get that HMIS number, if the child is 3 years old or 13 and in one of our schools, that we can coordinate that. This could be a very easy way to coordinate resources for them, right? And so that is what we're looking for the whole list so that we know where families are. So we know if we're talking about the first family on the list or the 50th family on the list, I can see that there are 37 families in St. Petersburg, and of those 37 families, 13 are in our schools that we could be touching right now. That's what I'm looking for, that amount of data.
Can you communicate that with the HLA so that they know? Okay.
She's not the only one, several of us have.
Yeah, we have, and so that's where the HIPAA violation came in, and so. I think I heard Erin say that that would be fixed and that we could have that data fairly quickly. That would help us a lot.
We also need to have a broader discussion about board governance and how this works. So what should happen is this council makes a recommendation to the broader board. The board has to then make that recommendation to the HLA. Email recommendations isn't how it's supposed to work. So we need to start course correcting and doing it the right way as well, which is part of what I've been trying to do.
Right, so this is a practice that was already in place prior and then it stopped. And so it's already gone through the board and been approved and all that, it's just fallen off the radar.
Okay.
That's the issue.
Kevin's correct about that, Aaron. This is the normal work of the CoC that should be happening, and it doesn't need a vote. It's an operational issue, not a policy issue. The policy is a part of the standard work of the requirement to have by name meetings. So I don't see it as a board vote that is needed to happen.
So I agree with everything. I just also want to make sure that Arrow's point is also lifted up as possibly a recommendation to bring up that the website also includes, or the dashboard includes kind of that health of the system. So how long, what are our lists looking like? That is very helpful information to go on the website and grab how many families are waiting, how long is it taking to get factory housing, what's the number for permanent supportive housing, from a funder, from a grant writer, all of that information at the tip of our fingertips is very, very helpful. And I think that was Arrow's point.
Yeah, it definitely helps. Even last night, everybody's also understanding, like, how long is the list of wait for family housing? I'm like, well, the last one I saw, okay, I don't know what date or anything. I'm going for it, saying this is the most recent one and blah, 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 they.
Definitely thinking of dashboards. I'll definitely reach out, Arrow, to pick your brain a little bit more about that. A dashboard would be HMIS's territory. So I'd be happy to brainstorm and talk to you about some of those dashboard items.
If you just go back into the lores of when, I'm just gonna say, when Amy ran the HLA and we were doing this, there is precedent for this. We've done this in the past and it was effective in the past. Why we've gotten away from it, I don't know, but as a shelter provider, I'm telling you, I'm glad this has been brought up. We have got to get back to the way it was.
So, but what we need to understand is what that means. So getting an email from one provider saying, I need this, and then having a recitation of I need X isn't clear anymore. So what we need now is clear policy from the CoC of exactly what you need. We can't just snap my fingers and go back to the way it was 4 years ago.
I understand that, but there just shouldn't have to be much debate about it. We have a precedent on how we need to do it.
But I'm saying that precedent isn't clear enough. There's no records to go back to that anymore. I can't find it. So I'm asking you for that, the clarity. So even what Amy's saying, there's been 19 things here. I've heard, I need this, this, and this. I can't go back to my staff and do that with any clarity right now. That's what I need.
It should be in the coordinated entry policies. This is a function of coordinated entry. And so those policies have to be submitted to HUD annually. And so they should be there. I would be shocked to hear that I've participated in board meetings in the last year where coordinated entry policies were discussed. Does providers, do we have coordinated entry policies and procedures?
Yeah. Yes.
And Are you not understanding what I'm saying? So those procedures are gonna spell out exactly what I'm supposed to put on a dashboard, public facing? No. We're not even having the same conversation back. Yes, of course, there's those policies and procedures. I get that. But some of you are asking what will be public facing. That's a whole different conversation. So what am I supposed to do with my staff? To appease everyone in this room?
Yeah, I could probably go back in archive and find a spreadsheet from an old SBA, so I could probably look at that.
Could you do that? So Helen will start by sharing with you a spreadsheet of information that we would.
I think what Aaron's is arrows.
Yeah, arrows.
They're not things, so it sounds
Well,
like they're not the same.
The dashboard,
talking about the
we're
weekly-
talking about,
The bi-weekly information.
yes, that should be in your files, your archives, some of your staff been here back at that time and did that. They're not all new.
So Aaron, I think you're right. We're talking about two different things. One is a public facing dashboard. The second thing is the by name list, which is not a public facing dashboard. What I'm asking is that we get back to sharing a by name list, which is how we move people through our system, which is covered by the coordinated entry policies and procedures on a weekly basis. As it relates to a public dashboard, there was a public dashboard that was approved by Data and System Performance. And so if there needs to be a different dashboard, because things change over time, that would go to a Data and System Performance Committee and they would discuss what that should be. And then that would go to a board meeting and everybody would agree, this is the data that should be publicly facing. Those actions have all taken place at some time, but it certainly might be time to have another discussion about what people want to see on that publicly facing dashboard. Does that help?
Absolutely. So the first part, we will do 100% what you asked for. We want that clarity. We want the shelter prioritization list. We'll do that weekly. The family by name list, yes. I'm sorry if I was trying to debate that. No. The second part, I want to do exactly that as well with clarity. Let's have that. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments for Monty or on this issue? Hearing none, we will move on to the next agenda. Thank you, Monty. Move on to the next agenda item. Joe Riddle is here with Pinellas County to talk about the CDBG.
Yes. Good afternoon. Thank y'all for having us. If you remember correctly, back at the end of the summer, we talked about the county starting its 2025 through 2029 consolidated plan. Part of that consolidated plan encompasses reaching out to the public to look for unmet needs, to see those needs that need to be addressed, as well as reaching out to the stakeholders of our funds that use our funds and getting input from them. At that time, we asked if this group would like to have a presentation on the consolidated plan and have the opportunity to provide those unmet needs and everything, and we were going to do that at our October meeting. This is our October meeting. So with me today, I have Amanda Warner with Wade Trim, who is our consultant who has been working with the county to put our 5-year plan together. And she's going to provide that presentation and then open up the floor for suggestions of unmet needs and those things that we need to consider in the 5-year consolidated plan with that. So with that being said, I turn it over to Amanda Warner with Wade Trim to walk you through this process.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for allowing us to join your meeting today to talk about this 5-year process that the county is embarking on to update the 5-year consolidated plan for the next grant cycle with the CDBG at Home program. Next slide. All right. Again, my name is Amanda Warner. I'm a planner with the Wade Trim. We're assisting Pinellas County. Thank you, Joe, for that introduction. So the consolidated plan is a 5-year planning document, and it governs the use of federal housing and community development funds for a 5-year period. So we're talking about 2025, which is an upcoming a program year, through 2029. The program year under these grant programs starts on October 1st and runs through September 30th. So just keep in mind that when we're talking about a program year, it's a program year starting October 1. So a consolidated plan is required. It's an application for HUD's federal grant funding. So that's the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and it documents public input and community needs pertaining to the eligible activities under the grant programs that are funded by HUD. It includes a strategic plan for carrying out community goals, and it includes an action plan that implements projects and measures progress against those goals. So the 3 programs that are covered are the Community Development Block Grant Program. You've probably heard of CDBG, the Home Investment Partnerships Program, and the Emergency Solutions Grant, otherwise known as ESG. And these programs address housing, homelessness, special needs, and community development. Now, when we talk about special needs, we're talking about persons with disabilities, persons having substance abuse concerns, victims of domestic violence, and the list goes on. There's many subpopulations that fall under the category of special needs, but I just wanted to bring that up now because I'm going to refer to special needs throughout the remainder of the presentation. So CDBG, the Community Development Block Grant, can be used for housing. So it's most often used for rehabilitation, but there's some other housing categories that fall under that. Public infrastructure and facilities improvement. So if you think about, public facilities in the community, that could be something like a community center, a library, public infrastructure, everything from, water lines to sidewalk repair, that sort of thing. And then public services. So for the Continuum of Care, public services is probably the category you're probably going to tap into most frequently with this Community Development Block Grant Program. Pinellas County in program year 2024 received approximately $2.3 million from HUD, and the city of Largo just under $600,000 from HUD. When we talk about the Community Development Block Grant Program, those funds are subject to a 15% public services cap. So what that means is the combined allocation that the county is receiving, so in the case of 2024, that $2.3 million, only 15% of that could be used toward public services. So, that really limits what can be done in the public service category under that funding source. And it's really intended to fund some more substantial projects in terms of community development, like public infrastructure, facilities, and capital improvements. And that's why they put the focus on that rather than into public services. With that said, there are eligible activities under public services, and we'll go into that a little bit further. There's also a 20% administration cap, so up to 20% of that funding can be used toward just general administration of the program. So that covers planning, reporting, monitoring, things like that. All right, so the home program, Home Investment Partnerships Program, is really focused on housing. So we're talking about home purchase or rehabilitation financing assistance, tenant-based rental assistance, and affordable housing construction, whether homeowner or renter. Pinellas County received approximately $1 million from HUD in 2024 under that program. And those funds are subject to a required 25% match, 15% allocation to community housing development organizations, and a 10% administration cap. And then ESG funds, Emergency Solutions Grant. That program is specifically targeted toward homeless services, so street outreach, emergency shelter, homeless prevention, rapid rehousing, and funding the HMIS. So Pinellas County in 2024 received approximately $200,000 from HUD and from ESG, and those funds are subject to a 7.5% administration cap. So as you noticed, all of the numbers I just presented were 2024. HUD has not yet released the 2025 allocations. We expect those to be released sometime in the late spring. That's okay. No worries. Yeah, so in the meantime, I will say that, while we're waiting for those allocations to come out, the county typically just uses the amounts received in the previous program year for all of its planning and noticing, expecting a similar amount. From year to year, those numbers stay approximately the same. They do go up and down year to year, so, but the county does plan based on those prior year numbers. So project eligibility. So under those three grant programs, can only benefit low and moderate income persons. And those low and moderate income persons can be benefited either on an area basis or a client basis. So when we're talking about an area, say for example, a block group, at least 51% or more of the population in that block group has to be low and moderate income for a project that's using an area basis eligibility standard. When we talk about client-based, it's the household. So the household has to be considered low and moderate income or meet that eligibility standard. So for the Tampa, St. Petersburg, Clearwater, Florida MSA, Metropolitan Statistical Area, in fiscal year 2024, the median income was $92,000. So what that means in terms of that low mod income threshold, 80% AMI, area median income, is the low and moderate income threshold. For a family of one person, that was $53,500, and for a family of four persons, that was $76,400. So just giving you a benchmark for what those numbers actually mean. So project eligibility has to benefit low and moderate income persons. That includes persons experiencing homelessness and persons with special needs. It also can be based on the prevention or elimination of slum or blight, or community development needs having a particular urgency. When we're talking about needs having a particular urgency, that's something like a natural disaster. So in Florida, hurricanes are a qualifying event for that. So project eligibility, I mentioned the area basis, that 51% or more of a block group having low and moderate income population. In Pinellas County, this is what it looks like. So the orange areas on the map are low and moderate income areas that would meet that threshold. The areas in gray are other grantees that have their own grant programs. So for Pinellas County, the program applies to the urban county and applies to the city of Largo, which is a consortium member. All of the other areas in gray, as I mentioned, have their own grant programs. And so the areas eligible within those communities would be under those separate grant programs. So in Pinellas County and City of Largo, the CDBG home and ESG funds have historically been used for public infrastructure and facilities improvements, public services, code enforcement, homeless prevention, housing, both new production or rehabilitation and or acquisition, and then new homeowner counseling and assistance. So those are really the primary activities that have been funded in the past by these programs. So these are some examples of successful uses of the funding. So the Park Center for Disabilities, the Burt Muller Home in St. Petersburg, that was a 3-year multi-phase project with the city of St. Petersburg. And CDBG funding was used for facility improvements that included replacement of the flooring and bathroom renovations with ADA upgrades to that facility. And approximately $950,000 was used for that project over a period of 3 years. The ARC of Tampa Bay, that was also funded with CDBG. That was an energy efficiency project. It was provided CDBG funding in the amount of approximately $95,000, and that was for the installation of a new metal roof and solar panels on the Tarpon Springs Adult Day Training Facility. The ARC of Tampa Bay was eligible under that special needs category that I mentioned, and the ARC of Tampa Bay serves the entire range of persons with intellectual developmental challenges, including persons with autism, seniors, and persons with intense behavioral issues. The Homeless Empowerment Project had the replacement of all carpet tiles with ceramic tile in the HEP Service Center. That was funded with CDBG funding in the amount of approximately $120,000. And HEP provides a hub for supportive services and provides a wide range of services to people, including homeless adults and children, senior citizens, and veterans. And then the home program, as I mentioned, home program is specific to housing. So this was a project for public housing. It was a redevelopment of the Rainbow Village public housing complex in the greater Ridgecrest area. Phase 1 is 25% complete and 3 additional phases are planned. The project includes construction of 80 affordable rental units. Pinellas County provided financing in the amount of $3.3 million, with 1.5 coming from home funds, 1 million from CDBG funds, and 860,000 from SHIP funds. 2 federal grant programs were used, as well as state SHIP funding for that project. And then ESG, the Emergency Solutions Grant. Pinellas County has primarily utilized that to assist homeless individuals and families with rental assistance. So relocating homeless persons residing in inhabitable living conditions shelters or prevention and basic homelessness. ESG funds are used to assist at risk of homelessness, with rental assistance payments, moving costs, rental deposits, and utility payments. So, we've talked about rental assistance today. This is another funding source for that is ESG. And I believe Joe is going to be talking a little bit more detail about ESG and some more ESG funding on the horizon coming up as well after this presentation. So the 5-year consolidated plan is a citizen driven plan. We started the process back in fall of 2024. We held a needs assessment survey. That was an online survey that was open from October 1st through December 6th. We got quite a few responses to that survey, and we're in the process of tallying those results and evaluating the answers that we received. A public hearing, a joint public hearing between Pinellas County and the City of Largo was held on program performance. That was held on January 13th. And upcoming, we have a 30-day public comment period on the 5-year consolidated plan. That's expected to occur April through May 2025. The draft 5-year consolidated plan will be available at that time on the county's website for viewing. And then finally, our target is to take this to the Board of County Commissioners in June 2025 for a public hearing to approve the plan. So this is the overall schedule, again, starting back in fall 2024, moving towards August 2025 when we plan to submit the plan. As I mentioned, we had a recent public hearing on January 13th. We are having the needs assessment focus group today at your meeting. And then a notice of funding availability application period will open, and that will open on, actually it's already open on January 14th and it will close February 21st. So just know that that's going on currently. The application review and action plan project selection period will occur in March through April. And then we hope HUD will release that funding information during that time period. We don't know the date yet when that will come out. In April to May, we're having that 30-day comment period. The planned opening date for that is April 7th, and then we'll close the comment period May 6th. And then we'll have that second public hearing on June 17th with the Board of County Commissioners. Again, looking to submit this plan in August. So that's an overall arc of the project schedule, looking towards submitting that plan in the fall. So with that, we want to open it up for any questions that you have about these grant programs. And then additionally, any needs that you foresee that could be addressed by the plan, either through the PPG, home, or ESG programs. Any questions? Any needs? Yes.
We have unmet needs in every single category.
Okay.
Profound unmet needs in every single category.
Any specific unmet needs that rise to the top? So for example, if you could provide maybe the 3 top most unmet needs that need to be addressed or could be addressed in the next 5 years.
We need housing for working poor. Alice, asset limited income constrained employed people in low paying service jobs in our county. states at the bottom, like 48, 49, that's spending on mental health and substance abuse. Some of the highest rents in the nation. I mean, it's. you know,
Affordable, yeah.
I know you from, you do a phenomenal job. So I mean, this isn't rocket science. I think profound needs in every category. Permanent supportive housing, almost non-existent. Multiple years wait list.
They, move-in assistance for some of the families that, was talking about. Families that are working, where they're not able to come up with the funds for rental deposits, personal security. Many of them have evictions and poor credit, so they're asking for 2 and 3 months deposit. It's just out of reach for many families.
Any opportunities for improved coordination through those grant programs or with Pinellas County?
I think it's telling that your ESG grants that focus on homelessness and the most vulnerable.
The smallest
It's the
amount.
smallest number at like $200,000 that goes nowhere.
So
Use that
limited
in one
funding,
night.
limited ESG.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that's how much the federal government is assigning, so it's hard though, because it is such a limited amount, it doesn't go very far.
Homeless families are a huge gap. We don't even have a full picture understanding of that issue because there's not adequate shelters for families in our community. Many of them are doubled up or living in bars and they don't have a easy way to access that.
And they stay hidden out of fear of losing their children.
I think there's a shelter for sale right now.
Yeah, storm seasons that are just gonna get worse, not better.
Irish cabin or thinking about hurricane Harvey. I can turn on the radio service. Everything. Utility costs, those are all often a big item that you can help with, but is that something? More like, are you able to operationalize pretty quickly after the summer?
I appreciate the example of the solar energy. Something to think about because these funds can't be used for operating support or dollars. However, setting up a facility through solar energy would be a way to reduce operating expense. So just sort of a creative way to use those funds in that manner.
And I was telling Kevin as we were speaking before the meeting, I hadn't got operational funds to give you because of that 15% cap. But I can save you 30 to 40% on your electrical bills by putting the solar panel on your roof.
Absolutely.
The architect, the art, those ones you saw there in the example, those were their numbers, 30 to 40% on their electrical bills with those solar panels. So, that's an opportunity, I think, to follow up with what Amanda said is, keep in mind, February 21st, the county CDBG program closes the applications for the next round. So think about those things when you get back to your desk with those opportunities that you can use CDBG. One of the other things that I think is helpful for the group, not for the next storm season, but for the one after that, we purchased a lot of generators for various nonprofits to help them. HEP is one of those where we work with West Care. for that backup power so that you can stay as operational as long and get back up as quick as you can as well. So I think those are two things that this group as a whole can think about using the CDBG funds to augment and help your agencies.
But I love that you mentioned that, Joe, and one thing I mentioned too for people applying for grants, especially, I'm a huge advocate of solar, and my husband and I donate money all the time for nonprofits to get solar or reduce their energy bill so that they can put it towards serving people. But if you're applying for a grant, check out whether that community has a sustainability plan that is kind of, ready for 100 renewable energy goals, reducing their carbon emissions and footprint, and you can help them reach that goal if you're located in that city and put that on your, I know Clearwater has one, Largo has one, Dunedin has one, Safety Harbor, has signed on. The county, I know you've got it developed, I don't think it's been adopted, but St. Pete does, as well. So that's another, good thing that you'll help that municipality meet those goals.
And I just want to add on the flip side with the solar panels, huge advocate. On the flip side of that equation, our insurance has skyrocketed more than 100% because they become a liability and a danger. And I can't find a funder to pay for our skyrocketing insurance. So just to think through of the unintended consequences when you're moving forward with those kinds of projects.
That's right.
Lariana, reach out to me about insurance coverage.
Okay, that would be helpful. Very helpful.
Just to add to what Lariana said, some of us had a meeting with members of the legislative delegations. We're all having the same issue. And I know I roped Kevin into that, because we got our wind insurance on Continental went up. Like, we got a $67,000 bill out of nowhere, like just an increase out of nowhere. And we're all sort of struggling with that, with housing programs on the insurance side.
Saying earlier about the opportunities for increased coordination between HUD and the county. Speaking specifically to the substance use housing aid, just knowing that there's a lot of funding coming down from opioid settlement. The OFAB for Pinellas County is deciding how that funding is going to be used. Some of it really, I would hope, would go to substance use housing. And especially as was mentioned, it's a problem for everybody, but the initial upfront costs for housing and first, last, and everything is a problem for people going off the streets with substance use as well. So I just wonder if there's coordination between HUD and bodies like the opioid advisory funding board as to what the needs are and where those funds are going.
I'll just respond to what you said. So those Human Services helps manage those, and Safe Recovery Housing made it to the top 3 recommendations from the OFAC board. So the next meeting is probably going to be in February, where we're going to kind of hone in on what the requirements are, but that did make the top 3.
Comments or thoughts regarding CDBG home or ESG federal grant project? Thank you all. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for allowing us to join your meeting, and I'll turn it back to the chair. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
That's it for that.
That was everything.
Yes. No, that's a set.
That's
next.
That's awesome. All right, so what we did here, did you want to present here the updated data before we jump to the next item? Got it, no problem. All right, thank you. We'll move on to the next agenda item. This is the Rush ESG funding. Joe and Aaron.
Here, do you want to lead off?
Yeah, I'll lead off. So HLA met with the county on Wednesday for our regular meeting. Joe gave a great presentation about some rush ESG funding. So I'm gonna turn it over to him a little bit for that, but for discussion as a policy question, which really will lead into Kevin's discussion about the priority population, is a request from the county is to come back with 2 priorities that we can use for this funding. And then I actually come into the next agenda item, which is a thought would be for a provider survey. There will be some maybe even additional funding that's separate and apart from this agenda item, which might be available as well for increased capacity for providers. So we'll get to that second agenda item, but really related is from meeting with the county on Wednesday is additional opportunity for funding. And again, I'll let Joe talk about this specific funding source here. But it will depend on what we can then, as the CoC, develop from this survey of the priority populations and be able to communicate back to them as quickly as possible. That's what we're talking about. So, yeah.
2 weeks ago, we were notified by HUD that we received $512,366 of an additional emergency supplemental funds for the Emergency Solution Grant Program. This program is the Rapid Unsheltered Survivor Housing Grants. Again, additional ESG funds to help those at risk or homeless that have been affected by the hurricane for the most part. What that tells us is these ESG funds can be used for our normal ESG activities. You saw earlier, emergency shelter, homeless prevention, rapid rehousing, street outreach, and HMIS. So we've got $512,000 that we can do. The eligible population that they provided for us, as I said, was either at risk of homelessness or homeless prior to the hurricane. If they've lived in the area since 2019, and the last any hurricanes that have happened since then, and they're not being served or fully met by the TSA assistance, I think it's looking to help address some of the things that we're talking about here. The one catch, the reason I wanted it was good to have this meeting today is they gave us a 30-day deadline to get the application into HUD, which is February 10th. What I'm coming to the group to talk about today is 2 big buckets of money of our 5 activities that I can put in my action plan that I can submit. Once HUD's approved it, then I will be able to come back and we can put meat on the bones of where we're going to allocate the money and exactly how we need to use them in those buckets. So the one piece that this grant did provide us the opportunity to do is repairs to emergency shelter that were caused by Helene or Milton. It's meant to be the gap financing between any funding you got, insurance, and if there's a gap, to fill in that gap, to do those repairs. It's repairs only, not hardening or anything like that. We can talk about that future funding agreements, but these funds are here to help address Milton and Helene homeless, any repairs to emergency shelter. It also indicates in my regulations that there is potential that we will get a second allocation after additional unmet needs and those type things are identified. We may get another allocation, but right now I want to focus on the 512 and those 2 big buckets of money that I need to ask HUD for, that we can help address what we need to here. Then we'll come back, allocate it, and get the money expended. So I open to the floor of what are those 2 big things that the group as a whole sees that we need to address. Emergency shelter, homeless prevention, rapid rehousing, street outreach, and HMIS. And I will say what that HMIS category is really to a little bit of administrative money to track everything in HMIS so that we can do the appropriate reporting that we do. So it really boils down to two of those four big buckets that we can say, this is how we would like to use our money.
So are we away from the repairs part of it? We're talking about what we can use.
Operations, yes, sir. Street outreach, rapid rehousing, whatever those things are.
And I bet you the guy next to me is gonna agree with me. We need more rapid rehousing for individuals who are homeless, not families, not veterans, individuals.
Yes, I'd like to recommend we look at the homeless prevention dollars. So many families and the burgers office that's the hurricane losses.
And along with goes hand in hand with the individual, but obviously we need more PSH. Because a lot of them are gonna need PSH.
Other thoughts and ideas are, does the group coalesce behind those two big buckets of the rapid rehousing, the homeless prevention, that again, when I submit this to HUD, they approve of those two buckets, then I can come back and we can start putting those together to see how we can get those funds on the street.
Kevin and Amy is off now, so.
Officially, yeah. But I just wanted to throw out there that the city of St. Petersburg is having the same conversations as well, the same dollars, and so our thoughts are as well, rapid rehousing and prevention. Prevention because it costs less to keep people housed than it does to rehouse them, right? And then rapid rehousing more in line with their individuals that we are getting calls for, and the thought of, residents who've never been unhoused before, right, who are gonna find themselves in this situation of being unhoused, and what that might look like. So it might be easier to, in some senses, rehouse them because it's not an eviction or anything there, based off the fact that they've had hurricane damage. They probably have been in shelter or CSA for some time and now find themselves needing to be rehoused. The only caveat to that is the income requirements and those things as it relates to record.
These are one-time dollars.
These will be one-time dollars, yes.
Joe, when I'm looking at the breakdown on the website here and the proposed funding amount and activity. Is it, so like 107 for break, is that for staff plus all the costs associated with it, or is that just the cost associated with it?
That's gonna be the cost associated, but the operational funds to provide you to do the rapid rehousing.
Gotcha.
Yes, sir.
Does the ordering matter of the two priorities for your processes?
They're one-time funds, you know. It might be best to put them onto an existing project. It's, one-time funds to set up something for 1 year. Most people step away from that by the time you get it up and going, versus enhancing for a year an existing.
Having consistent projects that would fit that one.
Put that out to the group.
There's rapid rehousing programs like the lab.
Yeah. There are some existing rapid rehousing programs out there. The prevention that has been being done, the county has been doing the chat program. However, I tell you right now, we're very, very short staffed with the hurricane issues, and it's only gonna get worse as we move forward. That prevention piece is an important part, and we as the county have done that in-house now for a couple of years. But it is something, if that's where we need to go, we may be able to work with another provider to do that. Along those lines, but I hear these two buckets are where we may need to look at.
So
we've got to make sure that there's a provider of rapid rehousing before we allocate a bunch of money into a program that isn't going to have any capacity. Yes, okay. So who's doing rapid rehousing right now? Other than,
The thing that's.
right. Oh, God, Kevin, go.
So we are having clients that have a lot of barriers here. So we only have regular housing. And I think we only play that house. Yes, it takes longer. Yes, you have a lot of challenges. So,
Okay. Reader's Digest version. If you end up homeless, you don't have to jump through hoops to get out. In the past, you would have to be in a shelter for so long. You'd have to show that you were clean for so long. And everything else. We don't do that anymore. We find the individual and we get them rehoused as rapid as possible and put around wraparound services around them. Increase their chances.
The rapid rehousing is the provider who's finding the rehousing option.
it's the program.
It's the
program, yeah.
Provide rapid rehousing.
Right.
To answer the
In a
question.
perfect world, it was once someone's house within 60 days.
Right.
Some people we can, or lower keep people with less barriers, that, the higher. The higher. We're gonna hold it.
So it's considered unwittingly we were providing.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Welcome to the club. Joe,
Yes.
is that, I mean, like I said, when it comes to rapid rehousing and everything, we have to really look at PSH because that's one of the hugest things that we're missing. It's great to throw money at something, but some people, they need that extra housing and that extra PSH.
One-time money isn't going to. Doesn't go, one-time money isn't.
I didn't realize he just put it in my ears one time.
So I don't see this as a PSH.
No, now I don't, now I know that.
So like if there's an existing program, it's usually rapid rehousing has some rental dollars that you're often for understanding. So this could potentially bolster that money that could have this staffing up on running, but they're short on the part of the rental part, right? So you can get people out sooner, you can help pay for maybe up to the year. Sorry, your rent.
So we.
Oh, no, go ahead. No, go ahead, please. Please go ahead.
So we are the Recovery Epicenter Foundation, which is the catcher's mitt in Clearwater, if you're aware of that peer respite center. And so absolutely, I mean, we have the staffing and the infrastructure in place. It's just a matter of funding and property finding for us to open up a peer respite center and have beds available for people struggling with substance use disorder that they can access almost immediately.
Say, girl, to your point, we're not short on money. It's not in the whole. It's. You have to be able to find the housing. For the village. So what about navigators? Like foster our housing navigators, I think they are liaisons or something like that. Or be a landlord position or something like that. You have that within the. And what I will say, maybe Aaron might be able to help, so we kind of have that within the HLA, some, we have some housing navigation money that's being, within the HLA right now, so we have that, and the CoLab has housing navigator, or housing specialist, I think is their title, so that's, their sole purpose is to get that housing. I think we will find even, as we know, less housing as people are staying in those apartments that we would have normally found as rental places, have an answer out, but outside of the box thought is what does it look like? So we keep people in Pinellas County, but what does it look like to think of people maybe moving in other places for rapid rehousing? So that is my out of the box, like, are we keeping people here when essentially they might thrive somewhere else because it costs so much here to house someone, but maybe we can house them in Pasco County, just came to my head, maybe we house them in Pasco County and they're able to sustain there and we don't have to, maybe fund it even as long because they're able to sustain there. So that's just, it's something that we, as funders, need to think about, as more and more people come to the program and we're not able to find housing for them here, sustainable housing, right? Rapid rehousing, put people in housing who have no income, and this is, I'm all for housing first, but we put people in housing who have no income and rent is $1,800 and we're expecting them to get to that, right? And so $15 an hour doesn't get you to that. And then we can't close them. We've got it for 2 years. And so rapid rehousing in the grand scheme of thing is designed for 2 years and then what? Right? And so maybe that is just something we need, a conversation that we need to have as a community. Do we need to keep people here in Pinellas County with our dollars? Or because they are Pinellas County residents, if they are able and we are able to find a place that we know they're going to be sustainable. So that gives us some comfort, some level of comfort that yes, their income says that they should be able to pay this rent. Maybe they are able to move out of the county and we fund that move.
So Helen, that's a great point. I'm in a unique position because I have 5 different COCs that I oversee. And of the 5, I have one COC that has everything written where I can use the funding to help relocate people. If they have family in a different county or in a different state, I'm able to use that funding to get them to a place of probably quicker sustainability and supports. I don't have that option in any of the other communities. And you know, when someone wants to.
If they have family?
Well, we've had clients with family, but others just, well, I found more, more job opportunities, cheaper rent, my sustainability here. So we're able to do that. I can do that in Charlotte County, but I can't do that in other money.
Well, we can do it with traveler rate, but not necessarily, yeah, that's a policy decision that we would need to kind of take up. For the bill, at least from the county funding. I know we've talked about it, but I think we're going to look at it.
And this rush funding does give us that opportunity for this to reach out there and folks out of the thing, because it mentions updating your written standards for them.
Okay.
So, you know, maybe if you could share, if we could get those Charlotte policies that we could use as a guideline to look at, if you could get that to us, then we could look at that as a whole for the whole county, all our programs. So as I hear rapid rehousing, homeless prevention, I'll use that to move forward with our action plan. Our next meeting is April 18th. I would hope that by that time we will have some notification. My next steps are finish getting this into the action plan, getting it to the DCC, hopefully the 10th or 11th for approval, and then getting that submitted to HUD. They haven't told us what their turnaround time is on this, but they did say expedite. So I would hope within 30 days they would get it turned around. So hopefully that April 18th meeting, I may be able to come back and tell you where we're at with this set of budget.
I think this is a formal action. The agenda is action.
Is it rapid rehousing and homeless prevention? Those are specifications.
I was just using this as informational.
It's about whether we,
And again,
I think, given the discussion, I think it would be good to have this as formal action. If someone's comfortable, so on the table, what I hear so far is prevention, rapid rehousing.
Just a quick point for clarification.
For ESG rush.
Yeah, on the, it's rapid rehousing and homeless prevention.
Correct.
Does diversion tie into that too? Or is diversion completely separate, or one diversion and prevention?
Conversion is, where does it fall into our ESG scheme of things? And unfortunately, ESG is not my strong point yet. I'm getting better at it. And I look to my.
I live in the gray area, so, diversion is prevention, it's just a new word for it. So, I mean, and so really, so if you're preventing somebody from being homeless or coming into our system, because that is what it's about, preventing them from coming into our system. We are saying that we may pay their rent, we may pay their light bill, we may pay a water bill, we may do whatever to keep them whole so that they do not come into our system. Diverting is the same thing. Maybe they are doubled up and we may pay the rent where they're at, the lights where they're at, the water where they're at, buy some food, and so that they do not come into our system. Or they're at the door of our system and we're saying, hey, you have a sister, what does that look like? Can we put y'all together? And so that is, so they're not the same. They're not the same, but they're very close. They are. They're on sisters. That's what it is.
So with that being said, I think what we could do is, again, the prevention. We get back and we start looking at where we want to allocate those and how we want that to make it look. Then we can look at this diversion.
Joe, is that in addition to the shelter repairs?
That's in addition to the shelter. Okay. Yes, ma'am. We do have those shelter repairs as a component. Again, if you've got any of those that were caused by the storms, please let me know so that as we get back to start that, we can do it. Yes, this is repairs from the storm. Yes, ma'am.
We have separate properties that have roof damage and there's a different insurance policy on each one and the work needed. I mean, it's cheaper to replace the roof than it is to pay the deductible. Can those be lumped as one project or is it per address?
I think it can be done as one project because again, if we're able to get one contractor to do all at the same time, then we'll do that. Do you have do you have a guesstimate of what that cost is?
So it's over 100,000.
I think we should. If we can't get all of them, we can get some of them.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, still standing for a motion.
Yeah, so moved. Like Kevin said before.
Prevention, diversion, and rapid rehousing, brush ESG. Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed.
You guys.
We have 10 minutes left on the schedule, so there's a couple items still on the, so Aaron, I'll go to you now for the topic you introduced earlier.
Sure. This is very quick. The HOA would like to put together an official survey to send out to providers asking about what it would look like if you had a 10% or more capacity increase, because there may be funds available for that. We're going to ask it in a more official capacity than we have in the past. So look for it in a more official survey. Thank you.
Great. Okay, moving on to priority populations. Give time for this topic, but I think we're gonna at least start into it. So first off, thank you to everyone that took the time to complete the survey that we put together regarding the priority populations. I believe there was about 45 people that took part in the survey. In your packet, you have a lot of data. So you have a summary of that survey data. You have the priority populations as past approved that this group on the CoC board has approved. You also have the point in time report recommendations for 23-24. You have some coordinated entry data. You have the 211 Tampa Bay Cares dashboard data, the calls coming in, comparison for 23-24, and then the Pinellas bill for zero information. This collective information was requested by this group and put together to get us to a point to establish new priority populations, for this upcoming year. And, what's our ideal, deadline for this?
I can speak for the county.
Okay.
So our budget is due February 28th. Which is why I know typically we do this in October. But that is, I mean, to be honest, the budget will be done and finalized at least 2 weeks before that. So it's really important that we get this in motion. It was very helpful last year when the chair sent out the communication, even via email, on what the priority interventions would be, because we were able to shift funding. And I would say that's probably the message, at least for the county, is that it would be shifting funding. We are required to have flat budgets again this year. Doing exercises again on 3%, 5% cuts to budgets, kind of presenting those just as we have done in years past. But there are some opportunities to look at what are we currently funding? Could we shift that funding to a different priority intervention? That would have to go through the hearing, it would have to be defended, but it was very helpful. We had the data last year for family emergency shelter. We were able to shift funding to expand that program. So I'm only speaking for the county. I don't know what the city or other municipality dates are, but we're behind kind of this action.
Say, but a point of clarification here. So I know this is priority populations and we worked hard on our populations and I thought at our last meetings, so it's the interventions that we're talking about and not the population. So the priority populations are set and we're sitting with those that we just approved in August, and we approved these interventions as well, but it's just, I recognize that we're going through those again, and that might be a little easier for us to work through.
You know, except that they somewhat overlap. The sense of some of the priority populations that listed chronic homeless individuals, that PSH is not a priority intervention. And PSH is a priority intervention for chronically homeless individuals. So you have a bit of a conflict between your priority populations and that interventions.
So the interventions that we are looking at today.
Well, you know, our priority populations is just about everyone. It's been the challenge that we've had as a group, and narrowing this down, hence the 30 pages of data that I'm not sure that this group has had a chance to fully read and digest. No, I haven't, but I can't speak for the rest of you.
One thing that I keep hearing time and time again is just to have a lot of people sitting in the shelter system that are on fixed income where I have no physical. Don't know if there's a best practice out there or that we can really point in on other than, long-term rent. But what's out there for that population. A lot of the individuals are not wanting to go into shared housing. So this is something that is working. Maybe something we can look at our different funding sources too, and be helpful for that. Also help for that. Here, are you really well for that population? I want to share out.
The intervention needed is convincing people, is convincing a population of people that makes between $900 and $1,200 on Social Security income to spend between $900 and $1,200 on their credit. And until we can figure that out, Cause I got a shelter full of people that get a check. And they will not spend their whole check on their housing. And I get it. But if there's a way to increase long-term NLF beds and not transitional, but shared housing.
Well, when I think of this conversation too, I think about what is coming online, what is the capacity that providers have being able to do this over the next year, because sometimes we make decisions on things and what we think is ideal, but then there's not anyone available that can do it. Because they don't have the resources or structure.
They don't have an infrastructure for that type of program.
Well, and I think as far as resources, I mean, clearly, most every municipality has said, I've got no money.
I heard that. So thinking about incentives, like there are programs with the state that like tax credits specifically. Like that, something like that, or make up your typical general fund match, governor. Finance. Or maybe. But the housing authority does have their first aid or something, so that was vertical already, and educated on what prioritization, I'm sure there's already waivers for that. But I think that's something that's like in the near future, but how do we keep this going next? But I have the benefit of they're just sitting, they're in shelters, they're not going anywhere.
There are some affordable housing that the paying for is paying for, that do have some 30-50%. Not all of them, any stretch of things, but there are some that they've been able to talk and incentivize the developers to use the 30 and 50%. Most of those are at 80, but there are some coming along that do have some 30 and 50% set aside. A whole bunch not to solve our problem, but there are some coming out through the pipeline and potentially will continue as we continue providing that need for and our home funds for those units that are coming down the line.
Sounds like one of the only viable options really is the shared housing, and how do we strengthen it? How do we strengthen that program? How do we do that better?
Shared housing in all the sorts of the communities that are doing it best have shared housing where the veterans are individual suites, where there's a bedroom with a bathroom and a little kitchenette. Because Sarasota, we're using sleep shared housing, because that's all we can do with our non-veteran funding. It's always mitigating issues and fines, because the landlord took a 5-bedroom or a 2-bedroom house and turned it into a 5-bedroom house. With 1 bathroom, always kitchen and bathroom. So if landlords can build it to be little mini suite within that house, it's a lot more comfortable.
I think a lot of the answer to that is the actual layout. When I was back when I was in the military, went from one base that the barracks were antiquated at best, and then I went to the next base where I had my own place and I just shared a bathroom with a guy on the other side, and it was much more livable. So I think a lot of it is when if you're doing a new construction, if you think of the layout of the actual building, it could mitigate a lot of problems when it comes to as far as sharing housing, just by mere laying out the floor plan.
So we are at time, so if I could seek a motion to extend this meeting, given the importance of this topic. 15 minutes. That would be helpful. Second. Favor, say aye. Opposed?
So we want to look at what we
So we-
Advertise
that,
for
that's,
this
that was what I was gonna say, to do a quick review of where we're at, today, which, when we created this last year, we broke this up into, vulnerabilities and risk factors. So these were things that, could exist across all populations. But we were seeing that these are things that, are priority for our community because they are the most at risk, and that was life-threatening health conditions and accessibility conditions that are at great risk of being in hospitals or dying as a result of their conditions. Severe and persistent mental illness and substance use disorders, domestic violence in the past 3 years, and individuals that were families at a risk of harm or exploitation, and length of time homelessness, chronic homelessness. The priority populations that we identified were disproportionately represented minority groups, veterans, families with minor children, older adults 62 and over, chronically homeless households, and youth 18 to 20. Our identified interventions interventions were prevention and rapid rehousing, much like the RUSH ESG that we just cities see these, you see them as all of them, be all three, or are they looked at individually?
So when I do my application, I would look at the priority populations. I wouldn't necessarily put the vulnerability. I would put the priority populations in, just those priority populations.
Regardless of the intervention.
And the interventions, the vulnerability would be added for I have a committee that does it, so they would look at those, like, does this meet that criteria?
So I guess the question for everyone in discussion is, do the current identified interventions serve the priority populations and vulnerabilities that we've listed above?
Necessarily mental illness or substance use disorder in the priority populations.
That is a vulnerability and a risk factor.
What was the question?
That we identify that as a vulnerability and risk factor, not a population. Because mental health and substance use can cross all populations.
What was the question that you had just asked?
The question I asked is the interventions that we prioritize at the bottom, prevention and rapid rehousing interventions, do those interventions serve the priority populations above, along with the risk factors and vulnerabilities that we've identified as a priority?
So it sounds like especially based on Eric's comment that we had a significant population of seniors or individuals with fixed incomes that simply cannot reside in a place by themselves, right? So that's your 62 and over, probably individuals that are SSI constrained, right? So, our experience in rapid rehousing is that the housing first. It's just very challenging to locate and secure a housing that they can stay stable in for a long term. So if we get them stable, then they tend to cycle 6 months. They're kind of vulnerable again. So I go back to this, and it's just occurred to me is how do we look at national best practices and a stronger approach to that shared housing? It sounds like it might be.
So that's partly for rapid rate housing, but maybe it's a function of better working with our shared housing program, like for incentives for people going in the shared housing program to extend the amount of units to make our places kind of under the rapid rate housing. Like, I mean, it's still, you're trying to get people out quickly after shared housing, you essentially could, but you don't have enough
better
Obviously,
housing.
shared housing is an additional intervention or.
It could be a function of rapid. It's bad, but am I wrong?
I mean, it would be new and different, but it's probably a lot better thought needs to go into the matching of individuals and,
And I would suggest maybe pairing that with community-based case management, so that once they're out in a unit together, you have somebody to help mitigate the coastal peanut butter issues that come up with stuff like that.
candidly, in our shared housing programs, the kinds of things that we see is one of the individuals may hoard. That's quite common. Significant mental health issues, substance abuse issues where they're triggering each other. So that case management overlay, per your point, has got to be incredibly strong.
I agree. I'm glad you brought that up. I think sometimes when people get the word PSH, they think of the housing itself, and supporting the building and structure, and there's obviously you need housing for PSH, but what PSH really is the wraparound case management and support services that help those individuals that are in that housing. And so probably interventions missing from here are just sort of those community-based wraparound services, case management supports needed. Yes.
Wanted to add, so domestic violence is listed as a priority population in the shelter is not listed as a priority intervention. Domestic violence is the number one cause of homelessness for women and children, and often there's lots of co-occurring situations. So in my opinion, there's a place in that priority population.
Similar to my point earlier, the intervention that adults serve.
I just want to go back to, what you said, to recognize that. I know there's a short model. Mentioned for the voting right away that was this agent having taken the status site or making up some of the provide that background services that we consider as one way to have some quick fix, and then maybe our plan is to attach the requirement but just the short term is that I think rather than having this great resource, really does supposed to be multiple. I mean, it might just be some like that services, but it does have to be individually and oftentimes struggle to share housing when they have no conference.
So, at least in our experience, we are rapid rehousing, trying essentially to connect people to permanent supportive housing. So those interventions seem to me to be natural partners potentially.
It depends on where they're at in the rapid rehousing process into their house. And they're homeless. So there isn't a natural bridge. It seems like it would be, but it's not, because the rapid housing has done what it's done, which is housing. They're now no longer eligible.
Well, no, according to HUD, if another agency is paying their rent, they do not lose their housing status. I'm sorry, home status. As long as an agency is paying someone rent and you're in a program, you do not lose your home status.
They're not.
But they're not in their codes.
I've allows for revenue housing. If somebody is developing.
Bring it back importantly to the discussion is, do we need to change these priorities for this year based on the data and survey? So Kevin, having gone through it, do you think we need to, based on this year's survey data, primarily for the city of the county? But now, a couple minutes left, extend the time, we'll shoot extend again. So I want to make sure we're getting to the answer, which is, are we changing these priorities from what we decided in August? For these budget decisions?
I review the data, that part has to change.
The priority populations haven't, it's the intervention need to be added,
Correct.
right? And so, to your point, Kevin, we're missing PSH.
Right.
And if shelter isn't there, like, all of our heads are probably gonna explode. And so
So if I can ask them, Karen, when you're looking for your budget, what other intervention information might you want to see there that's not there?
Well, I would say for me, I would be surprised if shelter is not listed, especially we're right in the middle of this new law. And PSH. And I think, two things, just for clarification, this list is not only used for budget, it's used for grant application, so we were able to use that safe harbor report to apply for that large SAMHSA grant, the DCF grant, almost $5 million of services we're bringing in. So I don't want anyone to feel we have to rush. We do need a quick turnaround for budget, but grant season through the federal government comes April now. So there's opportunity to use additional information for those grants as well.
Excluding an intervention here. Prevents them being accessed. I still yet to understand the negatives to adding and having more, other than it's just basically we as a community say everything is a priority.
Thinking in terms of like that housing is something we do now with not needing to build a whole new building. PSH would require that. So forth.
Except there's standards.
Yeah, that's true. Like short and long term. Like current, but our long term goal is to standard PSH capacity in the system, and that's something we could work toward. It's not necessarily this year, but if we have $813 million coming down, for example, or something significant like that, or other funding that we have for infrastructure, affordable housing, we're prioritizing that. But I don't know, just thinking about if there's a kind of short term and long term priority.
Based off what Karen and Kevin were saying, so if we just add PSH and emergency shelter to our priority interventions, we're widening our scope and not limiting scope of what can be applied for, right?
I would say, yes, but it was very helpful last year in defending the budget that we had the data to support families with children needing emergency shelter was the priority of the CoC based on all of the data. So the families that were waiting, the number that were on the list, the meetings that were occurring, that was, I would say, my words, easy to move across the finish line in the budget hearing. Having a list that lists everything is not as good. And I'm only speaking on behalf of human services budget, not other entities. And there's no guarantee that I even have funding to shift. So just kind of putting that out there.
But to Kevin's point, for grant season, it's a little different because for social action funding, we follow CoC. And so if it's not there, it's not that they can't, because you can write a grant for anything and stretch it all kinds of ways, right? But I am looking for, specifically, the committee is looking for Did this meet the COC priority interventions in the population?
I would recommend that for part of the shelters, it's securing, and maintaining the shelters that we have, like. Right, that's 30 days. The security knows alternate prevention, rapid rehousing to help the system keep moving through, so those shelter beds are available, and then have that long-term priority. We're adding X amount of new PSH beds, maybe something we actually put as a like good goal. PSH beds, something like that that we're working for in the next month. Infrastructure versus.
Yeah, we're ready to put that in a motion to. Oh, no.
Oh, I was,
Last time, so we do.
a motion to extend the.
A motion to extend, or a second. Second, all in favor, say aye. All opposed?
Yeah, Victor Morales from the SBA Public Information Officer. We're here for multiple reasons. I know that a lot of nonprofits are here, that's good for us.
Is this part of this conversation? Is this a separate?
I don't, for the public.
Oh, we're not.
Oh, sorry, I thought
No,
that.
we still gotta, we gotta.
I'm sorry.
We gotta get to a, sorry, I thought it was related to this topic. If there's time after this, we'll get to you, but we need to get a. Yeah, Kathleen, you're the chair, so.
So can you say a recommendation again?
Say recommending the, seek funding for secure and maintaining emergency shelters. Invest in prevention and rapid rehousing. Short-term goals and set long-term funding goals for increasing public health support of that.
From the floor, do I have a second?
Can you repeat the motion? I'm sorry.
Little low. So invest in maintaining and securing our emergency shelters. Invest in prevention and rapid rehousing services. Like the operating costs and support. And then set long-term goals for increasing our permanent supportive housing capacity. Like looking for longer-term funding sources for that.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a second from Ashley. Discussion. All in favor of this change to the intervention, say aye. Any opposed? Motion passed. Aaron, you want to get your CEO update and we'll try to get to the public comment?
Yeah, sure. I'll make it very quick. As many of you know, I'm in an interim position for the HLA. I'd like to meet as many of you within the CoC one-on-one. If I haven't reached out to you yet or on my list, please reach out to me. I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, I'll open the floor for public comment. There you go.
Yeah, once again, I'm Rick Morales, the SBA Public Information Officer. We are here, it was a great meeting. We are here to keep disseminating information to the stakeholders, like the nonprofits, that they always help out sharing information with the undeserved communities. I know that this meeting was more toward homeless people to grants, but of course, not all of homeless people can qualify, for example, with the federal government, because if they have a good income, they are not going to qualify. So we are always an alternative to FEMA, USDA, HUD, with the funds of CBDG and all of that. So we are always an alternative. We have been here since Debbie. We have approved so many millions of applications, thousands with the homeowners and nonprofits and businesses. We are going to be here until March 7th. We have the 60 days grace period. So I also brought the flyers for the location of the centers for the DRCs, BRCs. The DRCs are from FEMA, people can apply there with FEMA and SBA. The BRCs, business recovery centers, are from SBA, they can apply there only with the SBA. I brought flyers for the outreach material. So another of the purposes of us being here, we brought the CSRs, the customer service representatives. They can help to the people to apply for a reconsideration, to appeal, to complete the procedures, to know the status of the application. I know that not all of the people here had damages with Milton Helene, but if you know someone, we are here, someone from the public can come to the CSRs, so that's the purpose, they can come to them here to continue the process. Yeah, that's why I was, I need your point of contact, sir.
So part of our population may be experiencing or almost about to experience, almost for the very first time, their homeowners, their home got damaged, they may be staying in a hotel. Are there SBA funds available to potentially help repair their home, stay in their home? So help me understand what.
Even though that we are not grants, you know, we are not different more from the federal government.
Sure.
We have, they can use those funds for different things. We have for relocation, that means if those funds are approved, you can use them to relocate, to move to other places for mitigation, to prevent possible future events.
Yeah.
Also for physical damages, repair the roof, the wall, the floor, for economic damages, also for nonprofit and businesses. So we have a lot of different programs. So that's in a nutshell, because I don't want to take a lot of time. And I want to give a thanks also to Joe from the county. We have a good relationship with Cali, the emergency management director of the county, the emergency management director of economic development, the name, Cynthia Johnson, economic development director of the county. She's great. Also with Mary Burrell, the community lead with the nonprofits. She's very good with the donations for the county. Also with the PIOs, George, David, the public information officer with the county. So we have a good partnership with the state with the federal agency, FEMA. I can't forget Giovanna Garcia, that we have done so many activities, events, interviews, English and Spanish, sharing information with the survivors. So that's why we are here. We want to keep informing the people that we are going to stay here until the end for the long-term recovery. And thank you so much for your time. Okay.
Any other public comment?
Go ahead. We're probably doing the same thing. Well, I just wanted to remind, so I believe the CoC sent out the mitigation survey to this group, also sent it out to others. If you have not completed that mitigation survey, please do. The county has received $813 million, and they're gonna be compiling all that information to formulate their action plan. I think Dominique went through and looked at everyone that had a facility that may or may not have completed it and reached out, but if you haven't, and I'm gonna ask the HOA to maybe send that back out. The deadline was January 17th, but you know, it's really important information, and it's a lot of money coming into our community.
Is there another deadline you'd like us to get the second send out?
Today.
Yeah.
Friday of next week.
We're gonna send it
Yeah,
out.
I mean, I
Let's
think-
give another.
I think the firms are, I believe, are being selected on Tuesday's board meeting that we're gonna be carrying out the plan. That doesn't mean the projects have to be submitted, that's just kind of the entities that are gonna be moving that plan forward. So I think they're gonna be selecting several different consultants.
So set it up tomorrow, just say it. Get it in.
If you have it,
get
yeah.
Okay.
And I would throw at it and follow up with Karen there. As we begin the planning process for this 813 million, it's on a very short timeline as well. When information is requested, get it back as quick as you can, as well as there will be at least 3 public hearings and more seeking input from stakeholders and everything like that. Please make sure you're participating so that you can be in these lists and on these projects to take part in this funding. So I just want to say, please pay attention to when you're asked for that information, get it back as quick as you can so that you can be included and you don't get left out.
I'm sorry, you're gonna send that again?
I've asked HOA to resend it, so it was sent, I think it was sent to the behavioral system of care, it's been sent out to basically anyone that kind of works with the county. We're trying to get it out there, and it's not a one and done, it's not if you miss the survey, you can't apply, it's just really for us to start drafting what impacts are out there so the plans can start being made.
Any other comment? Thank you again to our guests for being here, for the robust conversation and for agreeing to spend the time today to get our work done. We appreciate it. Have a great weekend. Meeting. Motion for adjournment. Thanks, Zach. All right. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess first.